AFL football always has its surprises, with monumental upsets piquing our interests. Whether it's an up-and-coming team establishing its power, or an underdog beating that season's top dog, today we take a look at some of the biggest upsets in AFL finals history. We begin with a game mostly still fresh in a lot of people's minds. The match being the 2018 preliminary final between the minor premiers of Richmond and Collingwood. Out of the Tigers' 4 years of dominance, 2018 was arguably their most successful home and away season. They finished in first with just 4 losses and had a 22-game winning streak at the MCG in the build-up to this final. A job-done type 5-goal win against the Hawks in Week 1 booked their home field prelim ticket. As for the Pies, they got their way through a stubborn Giants outfit in the semi-final, after losing a close one to the Eagles away. Collingwood's run in 2018 consistently defied the odds with an abundance of injuries. Understandably, many pundits and fans felt the resilient run would come to an end, given the Tigers' dominance and finals-like brand on show all year long. Richmond, however, were in for a shock. Right from the first bounce, Collingwood blew the Tigers out of the water, smashing them around the footy and with their run and carry. After a goal apiece early on, the Pies kicked 8 goals in a row to the Tigers' 1 in the first half, pushing the margin out big enough to keep them at bay. Many predicted an X-Factor man to be the star for this game, and whilst the usual suspects like Sidebottom and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 had a night out, not many would have said the name of Mason Cox. A true breakout game it was for the American. Clunking almost everything that came his way, he took a game-high 11 marks, allowing Collingwood to dominate the air all game long. His 3-goal cameo in the second term was what broke Richmond, as the Pies cruised to a near 40-point victory against that season's very best. In retrospect, still is today one of the upsets for the ages, and it's what cost the Tigers the chance to go 4 in a row for the first time in the modern era. The year is 2003, and the Sydney Swans were entering into their first season with Paul Roos as head coach. With a fairly young side, however, and missing finals the year before, many had the Swans to be bottom 4 finishers at the start of the season. But to a lot of people's disbelief, they were the surprise packet of the year, surging into 4th place on the eve of finals. This finish meant a trip down south to play the dominant minor premiers of Port Adelaide, a side that rarely lost at home, with players at full strength. Sydney entered this game with a lack of experience and personnel issues. Michael O'Loughlin and ruckman Jason Ball were out, alongside Ryan O'Keefe and key back Jason Sannington. Because of this, many had Port locked in for a routine qualifying final win, as they were the better team on paper and had not lost at home since round 2 of that season. Despite being severely undermanned, with also Darren Cresswell having to pass a late fitness test, the Swans jumped the blocks to kick 3 goals in the opening 15 minutes. Although the Power managed to cut the Swans' lead to 1 goal, Sydney kicked away again through the brilliance of key forward Barry Hall. This was where the Swans put the foot on the gas.
40 out! Not a bad effort! He's done it! Davis keeps it alive for Crouch.
We got numbers.
Has 2 moving for him now. Nixon Williams loves these, does the veteran from 45. It's another!
Shell-shocking the minor premiers throughout the second term. Hall kicked 3 goals in the stanza, with his peers taking on 4 more to Port's 1, leading at the main break by a whopping 40 points. Momentum slipped out of Sydney's favour as the second half wore on, with the Power progressively making a comeback. To make matters worse, Tarkinelli, Stephen Doyle and Brad Seymour copped injuries to leave the Swans with 19 fully fit players. Although Nick Davis kicked the first goal of the final quarter, the injury-depleted Swans then had to hold on for grim death over the final 25 minutes, with the Power launching attack after attack. Josh Carr's late goal got the margin within 13, but Sydney were able to hold on as they recorded a mighty upset against the odds by 2 goals.
Against the line! Siren! Oh, one of the all-time unbelievable finals wins!
Barry Hall had 6 snags in the end, and Adam Goodes starred as the ruck. The win gave Sydney a home prelim against the eventual three-peaters of Brisbane. Port bounced back against the Dons the week after, but got belted in the prelim away to Collingwood. All's well that ends well at the end of the day, as both sides won a premiership within the next 2 seasons. Let's go back a few years to the 1999 preliminary final. Essendon were seeking a return to the big dance for the first time since 1993. The Blues were wanting to make it 2 berths in 5 seasons. It was the Dons, however, who were the red-hot favourites. The club finished the home and away season as minor premiers, going 18 wins and 4 losses. They comfortably beat 8th place Sydney by 69 points in the qualifying final, advancing directly to the prelim final. Meanwhile for the Blues, they struggled to reach the finals. After its round 16 match, a 76-point loss against Essendon, Carlton sat 10th on the ladder, with coach David Parkin publicly calling his side a B-grade team. Come finals, they were belted by the Lions in week 1 by over 70 points. This followed a bounce-back semi-final win over the Eagles to meet Essendon in the preliminary final. Coming off 8 wins in a row, the Dons were overwhelming favourites to progress to the grand final. On the morning of the match, the bookies had roughly $1.20 for an Essendon win and a whopping $4.25 for a Carlton victory. With also this match being between 2 fierce rivals, many were expecting a game never to forget. The Blues started strongly, kicking the first 2 goals of the match. Through their midfield prowess, they got the early jump on the minor premiers with a 6-goal-to-3 first term. The Dons wrestled back momentum in the second quarter, generating more scoring shots, but only scored 0-5 to Carlton's 2-1, to trail by 4 goals at the main break within an accurate 3-10 scoreline. The Blues midfield was the main influence for their lead. Scott Camporelli provided a lot of Carlton's drive, whilst Brett Ratton was also prominent, breaking Joe Mercedes' tag. Essendon came out of the halftime sheds and managed to swing the game to their favour. In less than 10 minutes, the Bombers dominated field position and kicked away to gain the lead. Their inaccuracy, however, continued to show throughout the third, but overall kept the Blues at bay with a 7-7 to 2-2 quarter, leading by 11 points at 3-quarter time. Key players like Michael Long and Darren Buick were starting to take the game by the scruff of its neck. Even though Essendon got the almost important first goal for the final term through Stephen Alessio, Carlton responded back with 4 in a row. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 was the man who sparked Carlton's final stanza. Moving into the midfield for the final term, he was key on winning several clearances and kicking 2 goals himself. The game then on turned into a seesawing classic. Matthew Lloyd kicked 2 in a row to bring his tally to 5 for the day, followed with 2 back from the Blues, including Lance Whitnell's corker of a set shot to extend Carlton's lead by over a goal in early time on. The Bombers' relentless attacks resulted in a Mark Johnson goal to get the game back under a kick with a tick over 2 minutes left. Then remained absolute chaos to finish off the game. With the Blues holding on for dear life, Essendon continued the repeated entries. A rush snap from Mark McCurry resulted in a behind to closing the margin to a solitary point. Another panic clearance from the Blues was swallowed up by Dean Wallace, which resulted in one of the most memorable defensive plays in AFL history.
Down in front was Rice. His kick is a pull-off, straight to Wallace. The mean bad man. Can he cover himself in glory? He's lost it, and Murphy takes it away. That could be the turnover that cost them. Murphy goes towards the half-forward line. Ratton has got it.
Fraser Brown's tackle was the one that be remembered for the ages, as the Blues gained field position to hold on and knock off their fierce red-hot favourites in a ball over by 1 point. A truly all-time classic that still holds up today. Alongside Fraser Brown's tackle on Dean Wallace, many agree that this match saw one of the greatest final quarters ever played by 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝. For context, analysis was done on the legend's final term. 𝐎𝐿𝐴 would have earned 127 Supercoach points in that final quarter alone. For all those fantasy players out there, it's a mind-blowing stat. In the aftermath, Carlton ran out of gas the next week against North Melbourne, pitching their second flag in 4 years to become one of the most successful sides of the decade. For Essendon, There has been plenty of chatter in the years after this game. Matthew Lloyd stated on an episode of the Sunday Footy Show that 𝐓𝐡𝐿𝐶 forced them to go to the G to watch the grand final live. Essendon bounced back the next year to win the 2000 premiership, but it still remains to this day a big what if on a potential dynasty. The Dockers in 2013 had become a powerhouse under second year coach Ross Lyon. It was the club's most successful season to date, recording their second most wins in a season, highest percentage, and second highest final ladder position of third. Fremantle were a force on either side of the ball, efficient and dangerous inside 50, with household names like Sonny Walters, Pavlich and Hayden Ballantyne. But their successes were also built off a formidable backline, being first in the AFL that season for points against. Veterans like Zach Dawson, Luke McFarlane and Michael Johnson were key to this. Hard to forget about the midfield as well, headlined with Nat Fyfe, who had a breakout year, winning his first best and fairest. David Mundy finished second in the count with a consistent season. Aaron Sandilands was in his prime, and Ryan Crowley displayed himself as one of the best taggers in the league. Their first task in September would be a tough one, heading down to Kardinia Park to face the Cats, a side that oozed consistency and plenty of finals experience. Form-wise, however, it didn't seem like much of a one-sided affair, but because of the gulf of finals experience between the sides, Geelong's outstanding record at home, with just one loss in their last 43 matches in the build-up to this game, and alongside their 41-point win against them in the middle of the year, many were pointing towards a Geelong victory. Fremantle also had important key defender out of Michael Johnson, whilst electing to start an injury-riddled Luke McFarlane. The game started off in the home side's favour, kicking 5 goals to 2 early on. Steve Johnson was the dominant player on the ground in the opening term, with already 12 touches and 2 goals. But once Ryan Crowley moved on to Stevie J shortly before quarter time, he found it much harder to impose himself on the contest. James Podsiadly kicked the first goal of the second quarter to extend the home side's lead by 20 points. But rather than going into their shells away from home, Fremantle wrestle controlled the game by kicking the next 5 goals. Ross Lyon's men progressively began to dominate the midfield battle, with Michael Barlow kicking 2 majors in succession. Pavlich slotted home a set shot and time on, giving Fremantle the lead by 4 points at half-time. The Cats kicked the 2 first goals of the third term through Stevie Motlop and Mitch Duncan, but again Fremantle came back with 3 of the next 4, leaving the visitors 5 points ahead at the final break. The scoring dried up in the final term as the game became a slogfest. Geelong had patches of field dominance and scoring shots, but couldn't buy a goal. The Dockers' defence and clearance game, however, was key to keeping the Cats at bay. Chris Mayne kicked a crucial goal off a free kick to give the Dockers a 2-goal advantage with 12 minutes remaining. Freo's stubborn defence continued to trump the Cats' attacks as time ate away. Then, with 90 seconds remaining, Aaron Sandilands' spoil to the boundary fell into the lap of Stephen Hill coming off the bench, and the rest was history.
Here, Sandilands, the big fist. Oh, look at that Hill. Somehow off the interchange bench and into his hands. Maybe it's Fremantle's day. Walters is on. Hill keeps going. This to send them into a home preliminary final for the first time in their history. Freo are at home in the second last week of the season.
A monumental win for Freo, knocking off the Cats and Geelong for just the second time of their existence. The Dockers gained huge belief and momentum off the qualifying final victory, building an unbelievable atmosphere for their home prelim against Sydney. They knocked off the reigning premiers with ease, making their first grand final ever. A close defeat but gallant performance was what followed, going down to Hawthorn, which began their three-peat dynasty. We'll finish off today's video with 2 memorable grand finals of the modern era. The first being the Dogs vs Swans in 2016. Come September, no one expected the Bulldogs to go all the way to the big dance from 7th. Their run was built off tremendous resilience and belief, shell-shocking the Eagles away in the elimination final, outrunning the end-of-era Hawks in the semi, then recorded one of the very best finals wins of all time in the prelim against the Giants. As for Sydney, well, they were Sydney, returning to their third grand final in just 5 years. They had the upper hand of experience and know-how when it came to finals footy. Alongside a better team on paper, it was a game that many expected the Swans to get the job done. But the belief from around the country of this Bulldog side was infectious. They knew that if they were to cause a ball over, they'd have to bring relentless heat and pressure around the footy, things that Sydney struggled against throughout the year. And it's exactly what occurred. The game was a seesawing battle throughout, but the Dogs' toughness, contested and clearance game was what cracked 𝐓𝐡𝐞 side. Going harder for longer, they were efficient in crucial moments throughout the final term, eventually running over the top of the warm favourites late on, kicking the final 3 goals of the game to record a memorable drought-breaking premiership.
Big goal in the last quarter, good kick, gives Pickett a chance, it's over, it's all over, the drought, the damn wall is busted.
A true team performance it was from the Dogs on the day, with also their forward line efficient as ever. Liam Picken, Tory Dixon and Tom Boyd had arguably career best games for the club, with 3 goals each. It was a grand final that perfectly displayed on what a ball over is. And finally, it's hard not to include the 2008 grand final. Between fierce rivals of the Cats and Hawthorn, Geelong were head and shoulders above the rest in 2008, recording one of the best home and away seasons ever, with just 1 loss. Regardless, facing their bitter foes of Hawthorn would be a tricky test, but given the reigning Premier's dominance throughout the year and the big gulf of finals experience, many had the Cats as warm favourites. Whilst cruising away to a grand final berth with wins against the Saints and Dogs, Hawthorn were peaking at the right time as well. 51 and 54 points were the margin that Alistair Clarkson's side won by in both finals, proving as the genuine 2 seed to try and take down this Geelong juggernaut. Priced at $3.05 to win heading into this game, the Hawks got the early jump with 3 of the first 4 goals, but the game evened out with 5 goals apiece in the first term. The minor premiers started to dominate the midfield battle, but couldn't nail their opportunities, missing gettable shots and kicking 1 goal 9 in the second quarter. The thing continued on for the Cats forward line in the second half, but after Buddy Franklin's set shot from outside 50, the Hawks never lost the lead. They began to turn the tables in the stoppage game, but also dominate the Cats with their damaging rebound. 𝐓𝐴𝐷 had a third quarter cameo to remember, moving forward and snagging 3 goal contributions in less than 3 minutes late in the premiership quarter.
Surrounded by Hawks, strong tackle got him down by Bateman. 𝐴𝐷 kicks a goal.
Buddy, well done Scarlett. Still with Franklin though. Now 𝐓𝐴𝐷 could kick this, and he has. He's had the best 5 minutes of his footy life.
Geelong would get 2 majors back before the final break to keep themselves in the game. The first half of the final quarter was a closely contested one, but then again, Hawthorn's high-octane forward line outdid the Cats as time wore on, kicking 3 goals in 5 minutes to put the dagger in Geelong's hearts and notch up their 10th premiership as underdogs.
Hawthorn, the champions. The long wait for Crawford over.
Luke Hodge was instrumental to generating control and drive for Hawthorn, collecting his first Norm Smith medal. As for the Cats, they'd set a record for the best win-loss record by a non-premier. But not all doom and gloom, however, as they evolved into a dynasty to win 2 more premierships in the next 3 seasons. So everybody, there were some of the biggest AFL finals upsets of the AFL era. Of course, there are plenty more to go over, but I wanted to include not a whole heap, but wanted to go into detail with each of the games I did include in today's video. Let me know some of your biggest upsets that came to your mind that maybe I didn't include in this video today. Always love to hear your people's thoughts down below in the comments. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.